In the winter of 1959, 9 young hikers set out on a journey that would become one of the most haunting mysteries of the 20th century. They were students and graduates of the Ural Polytechnic Institute, experienced in surviving brutal Soviet winters and determined to earn their highest certification in backcountry hiking. Their leader was Igor Dyatlov, a confident and methodical engineering student whose calm authority inspired trust among his companions. The group included 7 men and 2 women, all strong, intelligent, and accustomed to hardship. Their goal was to reach Ota, a mountain in the northern Ural range, whose name in the local Mansi language ominously meant "don't go there." The phrase sounded dramatic, but the hikers treated it as folklore rather than warning. They began their expedition in late January, traveling by train and truck before finally strapping on skis and trekking into the vast frozen wilderness. The landscape was merciless. Temperatures fell below -30 degrees Celsius. The wind carved through layers of clothing like invisible knives. Snow stretched endlessly across rolling hills, broken only by dark forests and jagged peaks. One member of the group, Ural, fell ill early in the journey and reluctantly turned back. It was a decision that would save his life. The remaining 9 continued deeper into the mountains, documenting their progress with photographs and journals filled with laughter, jokes, and optimism. On February 1st, they reached the slopes of Kholat Syakhl, a mountain whose name meant Dead Mountain. As evening approached and visibility worsened, they made a crucial decision. Instead of descending to the safety of a forested area below, they pitched their tent on the exposed mountainside. It was a choice that would later puzzle investigators. They carefully set up camp against the slope, cutting into the snow to create a flat surface inside the tent. They shared food, spoke quietly, and prepared for another day of travel outside. The wind howled like a living thing across the barren snowfields. Sometime during the night, something happened. Something so sudden and terrifying that 9 experienced hikers abandoned all logic. They cut their way out of their tent from the inside, fleeing into the freezing darkness without proper clothing or boots. The tent remained standing, partially collapsed under snow, but still intact. Their footprints led away in an orderly line toward the forest nearly a mile away. There were no signs of struggle inside the tent, no evidence of outsiders. What could drive trained mountaineers into the lethal cold with such desperation? Why? Would they leave shelter in temperatures that guaranteed death within hours? By late February, when search parties finally located the abandoned campsite, the mystery had already begun to take shape. What they would discover in the weeks ahead would only deepen the terror. When rescuers found the tent on February 26th, they were struck immediately by the strangeness of the scene. The canvas had been slashed open from within. Boots, coats, and personal belongings were left behind as though their owners had expected to return within minutes. Investigators followed the footprints leading down the slope. The tracks were visible in the snow, preserved by wind and cold. They showed that the hikers had walked, not run, toward the distant forest. Beneath a large cedar tree at the edge of the woods, searchers found the first 2 bodies. They were barefoot and dressed only in underwear. Small branches above them were broken up to 5 meters high, suggesting someone had climbed the tree, perhaps to look back toward the camp. Between the cedar and the tent lay 3 more bodies. Among them was Igor Dyatlov himself. They appeared to have been attempting to return to the tent when they collapsed in the snow. Their faces were turned toward the mountain. Frozen in silent determination, The official cause of death for these 5 was listed as hypothermia, yet, even in this explanation, there were unsettling details. One victim had bruises on his knuckles, another had burns on his hands. As though he had touched fire too closely, it was not until 2 months later, when the snow began to melt, that the remaining 4 bodies were discovered in a ravine 75 meters deeper into the forest. They were buried beneath several feet of snow, unlike the first 5. These hikers wore clothing that belonged to their companions, suggesting they had removed garments from the dead in a desperate attempt to survive. Their injuries were far more disturbing. One woman, Ludmila Dubinina, was missing her tongue and parts of her lips. Another victim had a fractured skull. 2 others had massive chest trauma so severe that doctors compared the force to that of a car crash. Yet there were no external wounds corresponding to such crushing blows. There were no signs of struggle, no footprints from strangers, no evidence of a fight. Even more bizarre, traces of radiation were found on some of their clothing. Though Soviet authorities downplayed this finding, it fueled speculation that something far beyond a simple accident had occurred. The official investigation concluded with a vague statement. The hikers had died due to a compelling natural force. The case was closed. But the questions were only beginning. In the decades that followed, the Dyatlov Pass incident became a magnet for speculation. Each theory attempted to explain the impossible choices made that night. Some suggested an avalanche. According to this idea, a slab of snow collapsed above the tent, creating a terrifying but not massive slide. The hikers may have feared a larger avalanche was imminent and fled quickly. Yet searchers reported no obvious avalanche debris, and the tent remained partially upright. Others proposed military involvement. The northern Urals were not far from secret Soviet testing sites. Witnesses reported seeing glowing orange spheres in the sky during the same period. Could experimental weapons have detonated nearby, creating shock waves and radiation exposure? The crushed ribs and fractured skulls without external damage seemed consistent with intense pressure. Another theory focused on infrasound. Strong winds moving over the mountain could have created low-frequency vibrations that induce panic and disorientation in humans. Perhaps the hikers experienced irrational terror, abandoning their shelter in confusion. More dramatic explanations included encounters with the indigenous Mansi people. Yet no evidence supported violence from locals. There were no defensive wounds, no foreign tracks, and no motive. Some whispered about creatures, about something ancient moving through the snow. But such ideas belonged more to folklore than forensic science. In 2019, Russian authorities reopened the case. After modern analysis, they concluded that a rare type of delayed avalanche likely caused the hikers to flee. Computer simulations supported the possibility of a small but deadly snow slab crushing the tent area. Still, critics argue the injuries remain difficult to reconcile fully with this explanation. The missing tongue was later attributed to natural decomposition and scavenging. Radiation was explained as contamination from materials some hikers worked with in their university labs. Even with official conclusions, doubt lingers. The Soviet-era secrecy and vague language left scars on public trust. The phrase compelling natural force echoes like an unfinished sentence. The mountain keeps its silence, and silence, in mysteries like this, can be louder than truth. Today. The location is known as Dyatlov Pass, named in honor of the group's leader. Adventurers still travel there, drawn by curiosity and the allure of the unknown. The wind continues to sweep across Kholat Syakhl as it did in 1959, indifferent to human questions. Photographs recovered from the hikers' cameras show smiling faces, playful snow fights, and moments of warmth among friends. They were not reckless, thrill seekers but disciplined explorers. They trusted their training and each other. Perhaps that is what makes the tragedy so enduring. 9 capable young people faced something that shattered their confidence in seconds. Whether avalanche, shockwave, or unseen psychological terror, the force that drove them into the night was powerful enough to override instinct. The image of their footprints remains haunting, a quiet line pressed into snow, leading from safety into darkness. No chaotic scrambling, no wild scattering, just a steady retreat into the trees. In that detail lies the heart of the mystery. They left together. They faced whatever came as a group. The Soviet Union has long since dissolved. Cold War secrets have faded into archives, yet the Dyatlov Pass incident endures in documentaries, books, and endless debates. It is a story that resists closure. Science provides probabilities, but rarely certainty. Human imagination fills the gaps left behind. Perhaps the simplest explanation is the correct one. Nature can be sudden, brutal, and incomprehensible. Mountains do not negotiate, or perhaps there are still details lost to time, buried beneath layers of snow and politics. The truth may lie in a moment never recorded, a sound never described, a shadow glimpsed in the storm. What remains undeniable is this: 9 lives ended on a frozen slope far from home. 9 families waited for answers that never fully arrived, and every winter, when wind sweeps across the Urals and snow drift silently over the pass, it feels as though the mountain is remembering the tent, remembering the footprints, remembering the night when something compelled 9 hikers to step into the dark and never return.